Jasmine Washington stood frozen as airport security personnel surrounded her at the jet bridge entrance. "Step aside, ma'am," the head officer commanded with unconcealed disdain. Just as they began pulling her luggage away, she reached into her jacket and pulled out a gleaming badge. Their faces transformed instantly. Before we dive into this shocking story, let me know where you're watching from, drop a comment below, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more unbelievable true stories of courage in the face of discrimination. Ready to see how this confrontation unfolds? Let's get right into it. Jasmine Washington was not a woman who invited trouble. At 43, she had built a career defined by meticulous attention to detail and unwavering professionalism. As a senior aviation safety inspector with the Federal Aviation Administration, she had earned every accolade through 15 years of exemplary service. But on this particular Tuesday morning at Chicago O'Hare International Airport, trouble had found her anyway. The journey to her current position hadn't been easy. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Atlanta, Jasmine had always been fascinated by flight. Her bedroom walls were plastered with posters of aircraft, and her bookshelves lined with aviation manuals rather than teen magazines. While other girls her age received makeup kits for Christmas, Jasmine had begged for and received model airplane kits, spending hours meticulously assembling each one. "You'll have to work twice as hard to go half as far." Her father, a high school physics teacher, had warned her when she announced her intention to pursue aerospace engineering. It wasn't discouragement, but preparation for the world she was entering. She had heeded his advice, graduating at the top of her class from Howard University before serving 8 years in the Air Force, where she specialized in aircraft maintenance and safety protocols. The military had provided structure and opportunity, but also her first harsh encounters with institutional barriers. As one of only 3 black women in her unit, she'd endured everything from casual dismissals to outright hostility. Each incident had only strengthened her resolve. After leaving the service with honors, Jasmine had joined the FAA, slowly climbing the ranks through sheer competence and determination. Now, as a senior aviation safety inspector, she held the authority to ground entire fleets if safety standards weren't met. It was a responsibility she never took lightly. Personal sacrifices had accompanied her professional rise. Her marriage to Michael, once solid, had dissolved under the pressure of her frequent travel and his resentment of her success. The divorce had been finalized 3 years ago, leaving her a single mother to their daughter Zoe, now 17, and beginning to explore colleges with aerospace programs of her own. "Mom, you're my superhero," Zoe had said during their last video call the night before this trip. "I'm writing my college essay about you." The memory of those words warmed Jasmine as she packed her regulation briefcase that morning. Inside were the documents for her current assignment, investigating potential safety violations at multiple regional airlines with particular focus on Sky Regional Airlines, a rapidly expanding carrier with hubs in Chicago, Memphis, and Dallas. Jasmine's approach to her work had always been methodical. She investigated, thoroughly documented, meticulously, and enforced regulations fairly, but firmly. This by-the-book professional persona contrasted with the warmth she showed in her personal relationships, the mother who never missed her daughter's science fairs despite her travel schedule, the daughter who called her parents every Sunday without fail, the friend who remembered birthdays and anniversaries with thoughtful, personalized gifts. You're going to encounter resistance on this one. Raymond Carter, her mentor and the FAA's deputy regional administrator, had warned during their pre-assignment briefing. At 62, Raymond had seen it all in his 35 years with the agency. Bradley Reynolds doesn't like surprise inspections. Bradley Reynolds, the CEO of Sky Regional, had a reputation for cutting corners to maximize profits. His airline had expanded aggressively in the past 3 years, acquiring smaller carriers and establishing new routes at a pace that raised eyebrows within the industry. Rumors of maintenance schedules being compressed and safety checks being rushed had prompted this investigation. "I've dealt with worse than Bradley Reynolds," Jasmine had assured Raymond, though privately she'd begun preparing more thoroughly than usual. The night before her departure, she'd reviewed Sky Regional's safety record, maintenance logs, and personnel files, noting discrepancies and preparing questions. She'd packed her formal FAA credentials along with her inspector's badge, though she rarely needed to produce both. Her early morning flight from Washington, D.C. to Chicago had been uneventful, just the first leg of what would be a 3-city inspection tour. From Chicago, she would connect to Memphis, then Dallas, conducting surprise inspections at each location before returning to headquarters. What Jasmine couldn't have known was that her name had already triggered alerts within Sky Regional's security system, a system designed to identify and delay problem FAA inspectors. As she approached the gate for her connecting flight to Memphis, the trap was already set. Chicago O'Hare International Airport hummed with its usual cacophony of announcements, rolling luggage, and hurried conversations as Jasmine made her way toward Gate B-17. Her charcoal gray pantsuit and sensible heels marked her as a business traveler, while her rolling carry-on and leather briefcase held everything she needed for the next 3 days of inspections. Her natural hair was pulled back into a neat professional bun, and her minimal makeup emphasized her no-nonsense approach to her work. The first hint of trouble came at the Admiral's Club Lounge. Despite her platinum status with the airline, the attendant scrutinized her membership card with unusual thoroughness. "I'm not seeing your upgrade in the system," the young white woman said, without making eye contact. "We're quite full today." Jasmine glanced past the desk to the half-empty lounge. "That's strange. I confirmed it yesterday." She pulled out her phone, showing the email confirmation. "Oh," the attendant said flatly. "System glitch. But you can only stay for 30 minutes due to capacity issues." Jasmine chose not to challenge this obvious fabrication. Throughout her career, she'd learned to pick her battles carefully. Instead, she used her brief time in the lounge to review her notes on Sky Regional's Memphis operation, where she would be focusing on maintenance record compliance. At security, the pattern continued. While white travelers moved swiftly through the pre-check line, Jasmine was pulled aside for random additional screening. Her carefully packed briefcase was emptied, each document examined, each personal item swabbed for explosive residue. The TSA agent, a balding man with a perpetual scowl, seemed disappointed when nothing questionable turned up. "Just doing our job, ma'am," he said without apology as Jasmine repacked her belongings. By the time she reached Gate B-17, Jasmine's professional calm was being tested. The flight to Memphis was scheduled to depart in 20 minutes, and the gate area was crowded with travelers. The electronic board indicated the flight was nearly full. Final boarding call for Sky Regional Flight 1372 to Memphis, announced the gate agent, a thin woman with pin-straight blonde hair whose name tag identified her as Megan Foster. Zones 1 and 2 now boarding. Jasmine checked her boarding pass, Zone 1. She joined the line, briefcase in one hand, pulling her carry-on with the other. As the line moved forward, she observed other passengers boarding without incident, businessmen in suits similar to hers, families with young children, elderly couples. Yet when she presented her boarding pass, everything changed. "Ma'am, I need to see additional identification," Megan said loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. Jasmine produced her driver's license, the same one that had been checked at the main security checkpoint and again at the lounge. "Is there a problem?" "Our system is flagging your ticket," Megan replied without looking up. "Step aside, please, while I verify." Jasmine moved to the side of the jetway entrance, aware of the stares from other passengers. Some averted their eyes uncomfortably, others watched with undisguised curiosity, and a few had already pulled out their phones, sensing a potential social media moment in the making. "What seems to be the issue with my ticket?" Jasmine asked calmly, though she was beginning to suspect this was more than random bad luck. Before Megan could answer, a security officer approached. Tall and broad-shouldered with close-cropped brown hair, his uniform identified him as Trevor Daniels O'Hare Airport Security. "Ma'am, we need to verify your travel authorization," he said, his hand resting casually near his radio. "Your name has been flagged in our system." Flagged for what exactly? Jasmine kept her voice level, though she felt her heart rate increasing. "We can't discuss security protocols," Trevor replied with practiced efficiency. We'll need to check your luggage as well." Around them, boarding continued. Jasmine noticed a white woman with almost identical luggage being welcomed aboard with a smile from Megan. The contrast was stark and unmistakable. "My luggage has already been through security, and my identification has been verified multiple times," Jasmine stated. "I have a right to know why I'm being delayed." Trevor's expression hardened. "Ma'am, if you become difficult, we'll have further issues." He raised his radio. "This is Daniels, at B-17, requesting backup for a passenger compliance situation." The situation was escalating rapidly. 2 more security officers appeared at the periphery of the gate area. Passengers now openly filmed the confrontation on their phones. Jasmine heard snippets of their whispered commentary. What did she do? Always causing trouble. Just comply, and there won't be an issue. Jasmine felt the familiar pressure of being simultaneously hypervisible and invisible, scrutinized yet unseen as an individual. She'd experienced this duality throughout her career, but never quite so blatantly. "I'm not being difficult," she said, clearly conscious of the recording devices around her. "I'm requesting clarification about why I'm being prevented from boarding a flight for which I have a valid ticket and all required identification." Megan, the gate agent, smiled thinly. "It's just protocol, ma'am. If you'll step over here." "Which protocol specifically?" Jasmine pressed. "I travel weekly for my job and have never encountered this protocol before." Trevor stepped closer, invading her personal space. "Ma'am, we're going to need to examine your luggage now." He reached for her carry-on without waiting for permission. Another officer approached from behind and attempted to take her briefcase. This crossed a line. That briefcase contained confidential FAA documents related to her inspection. Jasmine felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She had 2 choices: continue this increasingly hostile interaction as a private citizen being unfairly targeted, or reveal her professional identity. She had always preferred to travel incognito, conducting her inspections without the airlines having advance warning. But as Trevor began unzipping her carry-on and the second officer tugged at her briefcase, she made her decision. Years of experiencing microaggressions had taught her when to stand her ground. This was one of those moments. "That's enough." Jasmine's voice cut through the tension with quiet authority. She reached into her jacket's inner pocket and withdrew a leather credential holder. With deliberate slowness, she flipped it open, revealing the gleaming metal badge of the Federal Aviation Administration and her official identification card with the bold words, "Senior Aviation Safety Inspector," beneath her photograph. "I am Jasmine Washington, Federal Aviation Administration. This briefcase contains confidential federal documents, and you have no authority to examine them without a warrant." The transformation was immediate and remarkable. Trevor Daniels took a quick step backward as if the badge might burn him. His hand dropped from his radio. The second security officer released his grip on her briefcase instantly. Around them, the hushed conversations of onlookers grew louder, phones still recording. We didn't realize." Trevor stammered, his previously confident demeanor crumbling. Megan Foster, the gate agent, underwent an equally dramatic change. Her tight smile dissolved into an expression of genuine alarm, her complexion paling visibly under her makeup. "Oh, I'm so sorry, Inspector Washington," Megan said, her voice now honey-sweet. "There must have been a misunderstanding. We were just following protocol for what?" Miss Foster, Jasmine asked, her voice level but unyielding. "Which specific protocol calls for a passenger with valid identification and boarding pass to be singled out, delayed, and nearly have their federal property seized? I'd be very interested to read that protocol." Trevor attempted to regain his composure. "We received an alert about a passenger." An alert from whom Jasmine interrupted. "Because FAA inspectors are federal officials, and interfering with an inspector in the performance of their duties is a federal offense." Passengers who had boarded were now crowding the jetway entrance, watching the scene unfold. Some were still filming, while others whispered among themselves. Jasmine remained acutely aware of these observers. This was no longer just about her personal dignity, but about maintaining the authority of her position. I need names and badge numbers from everyone involved in this incident, Jasmine stated, pulling out her phone and opening its camera app. This will be included in my official report. That won't be necessary, came a new voice. A man in his 50s, with salt and pepper hair and an expensive suit, pushed through the gathered security personnel. I'm Keith Barton, Airport Operations Manager. Perhaps we could discuss this privately, Inspector Washington. I don't think privacy is appropriate at this point, Mr. Barton, Jasmine replied, taking photos of Trevor's badge, Megan's name tag, and the other security officers. This incident occurred in full view of dozens of witnesses. I've been publicly humiliated and delayed in performing my official duties. Any discussion should happen right here. Keith Barton's smile tightened. Of course, but I'd like to assure you that O'Hare International takes these matters very seriously. Whatever happened was clearly a misunderstanding. Was it a misunderstanding when every other passenger in my boarding zone was allowed to board without incident? Jasmine asked. Was it a misunderstanding when Miss Foster here claimed there was an issue with my ticket, or when Officer Daniels attempted to seize federal property without cause? Because from my perspective, Mr. Barton, this looks less like a misunderstanding and more like a pattern of discriminatory behavior. Several passengers nearby murmured in agreement. A middle-aged black woman gave Jasmine a subtle nod of solidarity. Trevor shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, Inspector, we were just responding to an alert in the system. We didn't generate it ourselves. And who did generate it? Jasmine pressed.
Because I find it interesting that this alert coincides with my scheduled inspection of Sky Regional's operations.
Keith Barton's careful composure slipped momentarily. I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm not implying anything, Mr. Barton. I'm stating facts. I was targeted, delayed, and nearly had my property seized. I want to know who flagged my name in your system and under what authority. By now, the scheduled departure time for the flight had passed. The pilot, a tall man with captain's stripes, emerged from the jetway. What's the delay, Megan? He asked, then noticed the confrontation. Is there a problem here? Captain, this is Inspector Washington from the FAA, Keith said quickly. There was a misunderstanding about her boarding. The captain's expression shifted subtly, recognition, perhaps concern. Inspector Washington, we're honored to have you aboard. If you'd like to board now, we'll get underway immediately. Thank you, Captain, Jasmine replied. I'll be along shortly. First, I need to complete documenting this incident. She turned back to Keith Barton. Mr. Barton, I'll need a copy of the security alert that flagged my name, as well as the name of the person who entered it into your system. I'll also need contact information for O'Hare's Chief of Security and your direct supervisor. Of course, Keith said smoothly. We'll cooperate fully. In the meantime, perhaps we could offer you an upgrade to first class for your inconvenience. No thank you, Jasmine replied firmly. I don't want special treatment. I want the same respect and dignity afforded to every other passenger. My assigned seat will be fine. Megan hurriedly scanned Jasmine's boarding pass, avoiding eye contact. You're all set, Inspector. Have a pleasant flight. Jasmine reclaimed her carry-on, adjusted her grip on her briefcase, and walked with deliberate calmness down the jetway. Behind her, she could hear Keith Barton already beginning damage control, instructing someone to handle the videos. Once aboard, Jasmine stored her luggage and settled into her seat. She maintained her professional composure, but inside her heart still raced. The confrontation had shaken her more than she cared to admit. Throughout her career, she had faced discrimination, but rarely so blatant and never with such apparent coordination. As the plane pushed back from the gate, Jasmine opened her laptop and began typing a detailed account of the incident, recording names, times, and specific statements while they remained fresh in her memory. This wasn't just about one unpleasant experience at an airport. There was something more systematic at work, and she intended to uncover exactly what it was. As Sky Regional Flight 1372 reached its cruising altitude, Jasmine reviewed the incident at O'Hare with growing suspicion. The methodical part of her brain, the part that had made her an excellent engineer and later an outstanding inspector, began organizing the facts, seeking patterns. This wasn't the first time she'd encountered resistance during her inspections. 3 months ago in Dallas, her hotel reservation had mysteriously disappeared. 2 weeks before that in Cincinnati, her rental car had been given away despite her confirmed booking. Last month in Detroit, she'd been detained at security for nearly an hour over an anomaly in her carry-on that turned out to be nothing. At the time, she'd attributed these incidents to the routine frustrations of frequent travel. Now, she wasn't so sure. Her phone vibrated with an incoming text. It was from Derek Simmons, a fellow FAA inspector based in the southern region. "Heard you had trouble at ORD. Not the first. Call when you land." Jasmine frowned. How did Derek already know about what had happened less than an hour ago? She typed a quick acknowledgement and returned to her analysis. Opening her laptop, she pulled up the schedule of her inspection tour: Chicago, Memphis, Dallas, all Sky Regional hubs. She then opened another file containing her inspection history for the past 18 months. A pattern emerged that she hadn't noticed before. The travel disruptions had begun shortly after Sky Regional's rapid expansion, and specifically after Bradley Reynolds had taken over as CEO. Could it be coincidence? Possibly. But Jasmine hadn't risen to her position by believing in coincidences. She opened a browser window and searched for information about North Star Security Services, the contractor that provided security personnel for O'Hare and several other major airports. The company's About Us page showed it had been acquired 6 months ago by Reynolds Holdings Group, a subsidiary company owned by none other than Bradley Reynolds. "Interesting," Jasmine murmured. The flight attendant paused by her seat. "Can I get you anything, ma'am?" "Just water, please," Jasmine replied, then returned to her research. She dug deeper, searching public records for connections between Reynolds and airport operations. Another article caught her attention. Sky Regional implements new passenger screening technology. The system developed by TechSafe Solutions promised to identify potential security risks before they reach the gate. A quick search revealed that TechSafe Solutions was yet another recent acquisition of Reynolds Holdings Group. Jasmine's phone vibrated again. This time it was an email from Raymond Carter, her mentor at the FAA. "Call immediately. Concerns about your inspection schedule." Before she could respond, her phone signaled another incoming text, this one from a number she didn't recognize. "Data on SR security flags. 8 inspectors targeted in 6 months. 7/8 non-white. Check your email. Sarah L." Jasmine didn't know any Sarah L., but the message was too specific to ignore. She checked her email and found a message in her spam folder from Slauson at techsafesolutions.com with the subject line "Urgent. Security protocol violation." Attached was a spreadsheet. The document contained a list of names, all FAA inspectors, with dates, airports, and intervention types. Her own name appeared multiple times. Next to each entry was a color code with a key at the bottom: green for routine delay, yellow for extended screening, and red for maximum disruption. Today's incident at O'Hare was coded red. As Jasmine scrolled through the data, she noticed another pattern. The inspectors with the most interventions were predominantly people of color. White inspectors on the list had mostly green codes, while Black and Hispanic inspectors were predominantly yellow and red. This wasn't just corporate obstruction, it was systematic discrimination, weaponizing security protocols against minority federal officials. The plane began its descent into Memphis. Jasmine closed her laptop, her mind racing with implications. This was bigger than she had initially thought, potentially criminal obstruction of federal officers, civil rights violations, and corporate conspiracy. As the landing gear deployed with a mechanical thud, Jasmine made a decision. She would proceed with her scheduled inspection, but with a second unofficial investigation running in parallel. Someone was targeting FAA inspectors based on race, and they were using Bradley Reynolds' corporate empire to do it. The plane touched down at Memphis International Airport. As passengers began gathering their belongings, Jasmine remained seated, organizing her thoughts. When she finally stood to retrieve her carry-on, she noticed a man in a dark suit standing at the front of the cabin watching her. Their eyes met briefly before he turned and exited the plane ahead of other passengers. At the jet bridge, Jasmine was surprised to find a Sky Regional representative waiting for her. Inspector Washington, I'm Austin Miller, Sky Regional's Memphis Operations Director, said a tall man with a practiced smile. We're delighted to welcome you to Memphis. Your visit today is unexpected. Jasmine studied him carefully. Her inspection was supposed to be unannounced.
How did you know I was coming, Mr. Miller?
Austin's smile faltered slightly. Standard courtesy. We monitor incoming flights for VIPs. I'm not a VIP, Mr. Miller. I'm a federal inspector conducting an unannounced safety compliance review. Jasmine matched his smile with one of her own, equally practiced and equally insincere. And I'm very interested in how you knew to expect me today. The tension between them was palpable. Austin's smile disappeared entirely. I'm sure it was just good planning on our part. If you'll follow me, we've arranged transportation to our maintenance facility. That won't be necessary, Jasmine replied. I'll proceed according to my own schedule. As Austin reluctantly escorted her through the terminal, Jasmine's mind continued connecting pieces of the puzzle. The incident at O'Hare, the data from the mysterious Sarah L., Derek's warning, Raymond's concern, and now this welcoming committee at Memphis, it all pointed to one disturbing conclusion. Sky Regional knew she was coming. They had tried to delay her in Chicago, and now they were attempting to control her movements in Memphis. What were they hiding that was worth risking federal charges to conceal? What do you think is really going on here? Is Sky Regional engaging in racial discrimination, or is there something even more sinister happening? Comment number 1 if you think Jasmine should report this immediately, or number 2 if you think she should gather more evidence first. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on what happens next in this shocking true story. Do you think Bradley Reynolds knew about the discrimination happening under his watch? Let's see what Jasmine discovers next. Jasmine entered her hotel room at the Memphis Airport Marriott with caution, immediately sensing something wasn't right. The desk lamp was on, though she distinctly remembered turning off all lights before leaving that morning. The closet door stood slightly ajar. Her suitcase, which she had left neatly placed on the luggage rack, was now on the floor. Someone had been in her room. Moving methodically, she checked each area without touching anything. The bathroom appeared untouched, but her laptop, which she'd fortunately taken with her, showed signs that someone had attempted to access it. The security seal she'd placed over the USB ports had been broken and reapplied with slightly different alignment. Jasmine took out her phone and called Benjamin Chen, her direct supervisor at the FAA. Benjamin, it's Jasmine. I think we have a serious situation. She outlined everything: the incident at O'Hare, the mysterious data she'd received, and now the apparent search of her hotel room. This is concerning, Benjamin said, his normally measured tone now tinged with worry. Have you documented everything? Yes, but I'm not sure how deep this goes. Sky Regional knew I was coming. They tried to prevent me from reaching Memphis, and now someone's been through my things. Do you want to abort the inspection? I can have you on a flight back to DC tonight. Jasmine considered this briefly before answering. No, that's what they want. I need to find out what they're hiding, but I could use some backup. I'll see who's available in the area. In the meantime, be careful and maintain documentation of everything. If what you're suggesting is true, Reynolds could be looking at federal charges for obstructing an inspection. After ending the call, Jasmine secured her belongings and left the hotel. She couldn't trust the room's privacy and needed a secure location to work. She found a small coffee shop 2 blocks away and settled into a corner table with her laptop. Her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Normally, she would let unknown calls go to voicemail, but given the circumstances, she answered cautiously. Inspector Washington, my name is Sarah Lawson. I sent you that email earlier. Miss Lawson, I was wondering if I'd hear from you directly. Who exactly are you? Until 3 weeks ago, I was TechSafe's senior data analyst. I designed the software that's currently being used to target FAA inspectors like yourself. Jasmine felt her pulse quicken. And why are you contacting me? Because what they're doing isn't just unethical, it's illegal. Can we meet? I have documentation you need to see. 30 minutes later, Jasmine sat across from Sarah Lawson in a quiet park several miles from the airport. Sarah was younger than Jasmine had expected, probably early 30s, with nervous eyes that constantly scanned their surroundings. "I didn't know what the system was really being used for when I designed it," Sarah began, her voice low. "It was supposed to identify actual security threats based on behavioral patterns. But after Reynolds Holdings acquired TechSafe, everything changed." She handed Jasmine a flash drive. "This contains the original security algorithm and the modified version currently in use. The changes are subtle but significant. The system now flags individuals based on parameters that have nothing to do with security risk, race being the primary one. And you have proof this was intentional." Sarah nodded grimly. Reynolds personally directed the modifications. There are emails, meeting minutes. He specifically instructed that certain types of FAA inspectors should receive enhanced scrutiny. It was all couched in security language, but the pattern is unmistakable. Why target FAA inspectors specifically? Sky Regional has been cutting corners on maintenance to boost profits. They've been covering it up during scheduled inspections, but surprise visits like yours are harder to prepare for. The system gives them advance warning and, if necessary, prevents inspectors from reaching their destinations. Jasmine processed this information. So this goes beyond discrimination. They're potentially endangering passengers by evading safety protocols. Exactly. And it gets worse. Sarah pulled out her phone and showed Jasmine a series of internal emails. Reynolds has been pressuring maintenance crews to sign off on aircraft with known issues. Planes that should be grounded for repairs are being kept in service. They've created a separate sanitized set of maintenance logs to show inspectors. As Sarah continued revealing details, Jasmine's concern deepened. This wasn't just corporate obstruction, it was a systematic effort to undermine aviation safety for profit. After their meeting, Jasmine made 2 more calls. The first was to Terrell Jackson, an investigative journalist who had previously reported on airline industry safety violations. The second was to Derek Simmons, who confirmed that he and 3 other minority inspectors had experienced similar interference during their inspections of Sky Regional facilities. "It's not just you," Jasmine, Derek said. "They've been doing this for months." Martin Rodriguez was detained by security for 3 hours in Dallas last month. Keisha Williams had her credentials questioned in Atlanta. "It's happening to all of us, but management keeps treating them as isolated incidents." Back in her hotel room, which she had requested be changed, Jasmine analyzed the data from Sarah's flash drive. The evidence was damning. The security system had been programmed to flag inspectors based on factors including race, gender, and previous history of citing violations. The more stringent an inspector had been in the past, the more likely they were to be targeted for delays or detainment. Cross-referencing this data with inspection reports revealed another disturbing pattern. Maintenance issues previously identified at Sky Regional facilities had been repeatedly downplayed or hidden during follow-up inspections. Aircraft with structural problems, faulty sensors, and outdated safety equipment were being cleared for service despite failing to meet FAA standards. As Jasmine compiled her findings, her hotel room phone rang. Wary, she answered, without speaking. "Inspector Washington." The voice was male, unfamiliar. "You're digging into matters that don't concern you. If you're smart, you'll stick to your assigned inspection schedule and nothing else." "Who is this?" Jasmine demanded, but the line had already gone dead. She immediately called hotel security to report the threatening call, then contacted Benjamin Chen again to update him on the situation. As they were speaking, she received a text from Terrell Jackson, found connection between Reynolds and North Star Security. Meeting tomorrow, 7 a.m., Hampton Inn lobby. That night, Jasmine slept fitfully, keeping her room door secured with both the deadbolt and a portable door jammer she carried when traveling. In the morning, she met Terrell at the designated location. The journalist arrived with a thick folder of documents. "Reynolds has been buying up security contracts at major airports across the country," Terrell explained, spreading photographs across the table. "But he's been doing it through shell companies and subsidiaries to avoid regulatory scrutiny. One photo showed Bradley Reynolds in conversation with Keith Barton, the O'Hare operations manager who had tried to smooth over yesterday's incident. Another showed Reynolds with the head of North Star Security. "He's creating an integrated system," Terrell continued. "Airlines, airports, security companies, all working together to evade proper oversight. And he's using security protocols as a weapon against regulators who might expose him." As they were reviewing the evidence, Jasmine's phone rang. It was Trevor Daniels, the security officer from O'Hare. "Inspector Washington, this is Officer Daniels from Chicago. I need to talk to you." "Officer Daniels, this is unexpected." Jasmine put the phone on speaker so Terrell could hear. "What happened yesterday wasn't right," Trevor said, his voice strained. "We've been receiving directives from management about certain passengers to flag for enhanced screening. It's all based on profiles that have nothing to do with actual security threats. Are you saying you were instructed to delay me specifically?" "Yes. Your name was on a list. We get these lists before every shift passengers to watch, for mostly FAA and Department of Transportation officials. But it's not random. There's a pattern to who gets flagged for the most severe interventions. And you're coming forward now because..." Trevor paused. "Because what we're doing isn't just wrong, it's illegal. And after seeing how you were treated, I can't be part of it anymore. I have documentation, directives, lists, emails. I'll testify if needed." This was the break Jasmine needed, an insider willing to confirm the discriminatory practices. She arranged to meet Trevor later that day to collect his evidence. By early afternoon, Jasmine had amassed substantial documentation of Sky Regional's systematic obstruction of federal inspectors and their discriminatory security practices. But the most disturbing evidence came from Sarah's maintenance records, which revealed at least 6 Sky Regional aircraft currently in service with safety issues serious enough to warrant grounding. One of those aircraft was scheduled to fly from Memphis to Dallas that evening, the very flight Jasmine was booked on for the next leg of her inspection tour. As she prepared to leave for the airport, Jasmine discovered her laptop missing from her hotel room. The door had been locked, the additional security in place. Whoever had taken it had professional access to the room. This wasn't just corporate obstruction anymore. It was escalating into something far more dangerous. She called Benjamin Chen with urgency. "They're trying to stop me from completing the inspection, and I think I know why. Sky Regional has planes in service that should be grounded for safety violations." "This has gone beyond an administrative investigation," Benjamin replied. "I'm contacting the FBI. Get yourself somewhere safe until they can reach you." But Jasmine knew there was no time to wait. Hundreds of passengers would be boarding unsafe aircraft while bureaucratic wheels turned. She needed to act now. The rental car's engine sputtered, then died completely as Jasmine navigated the exit ramp toward Memphis International Airport. She coasted to the shoulder, hazard lights blinking in the late afternoon sun. This was no coincidence, not after everything else that had happened. Popping the hood, she immediately spotted the problem: several disconnected wires and a loosened fuel line. Had she not been driving cautiously, the results could have been catastrophic. Jasmine called the rental company for assistance, then contacted local police to report the tampering. The officer who arrived seemed disinterested in her concerns. "Probably just poor maintenance, ma'am," he said, barely glancing at the engine. "These rental companies don't check their vehicles properly." "Officer, I'm a certified aircraft engineer and an FAA inspector. These wires didn't disconnect themselves, and that fuel line was deliberately loosened. Someone tampered with this vehicle." The officer shrugged. "No witnesses, no cameras in the area? Not much we can do. You want to file a report, you can come down to the station after your tow arrives." Jasmine recognized the brush-off for what it was. She took photos of the damage herself, documented the officer's badge number and name, then arranged for ride-share transportation to the airport. She couldn't afford further delays. As she waited, her phone rang. It was Zoe, her daughter. "Mom, something weird is happening. There were 2 men asking questions about you at Mrs. Pearson's house next door." They said they were colleagues of yours, but they didn't have any ID. Alarm surged through Jasmine. What did they want to know? When you'd be home, if you live alone, if you ever bring work home. Mrs. Pearson thought it was suspicious and called me after they left. Zoe, listen carefully. I want you to pack an overnight bag and go stay with Grandma and Grandpa. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Mom, you're scaring me. It's probably nothing, but I'm in the middle of a sensitive investigation. I'd feel better knowing you're with family until I get home. After ensuring Zoe was on her way to her grandparents' house, Jasmine arrived at Memphis International Airport with renewed determination. The stakes had just increased exponentially. This wasn't just about her career or even about discriminatory practices. These people had brought her family into it. At the airport, she spotted Austin Miller, the Sky Regional Operations Director, watching her from near the check-in counters. She approached him directly. Mr. Miller, I think it's time we had an honest conversation. Austin looked nervous, his earlier confidence replaced by visible anxiety. Inspector Washington, I was hoping to catch you before your departure. Were you, like your colleagues, hoped to catch my daughter at home? Austin's face paled.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think you do. Just like you know about the security targeting at O'Hare, the tampering with my rental car, and the maintenance violations Sky Regional has been covering up. Austin glanced around nervously, then lowered his voice. Look, I'm just following directions. I didn't sign up for any of this. Then help me stop it. People's lives are at risk. For a moment, Austin seemed to consider this. Then he shook his head. You don't understand. Reynolds has connections everywhere, airports, security companies, even local police. If I talk, my career is over. If one of those planes goes down because of neglected maintenance, people die. How will your career look then? This struck a nerve. Austin hesitated, then whispered, There are bigger forces at work than you realize. Be careful. He walked away quickly, disappearing into the crowd. Jasmine proceeded to security hyper-aware of her surroundings. As she placed her items on the conveyor belt, her phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. Storage closet near gate C12, 10 minutes. Come alone. T. Trevor Daniels, the security officer from O'Hare who had promised her evidence. Jasmine collected her belongings and made her way to Concourse C, constantly checking to ensure she wasn't being followed. The storage closet was unlocked as promised. Trevor was already inside, looking even more nervous than when she'd last seen him. I'm sorry about what happened in Chicago, he began without preamble. I've been part of this system for over a year, but I never understood the full scope until I started documenting patterns. What exactly have you been instructed to do? Jasmine asked. We receive daily lists of persons of interest, mostly government officials, inspectors, journalists. Each name comes with a color code indicating how aggressively we should intervene. But the pattern became clear. Minority officials consistently received the highest intervention codes, especially FAA inspectors visiting Sky Regional facilities. Trevor handed her a USB drive. This contains copies of those lists going back 6 months, along with the directives we received about how to handle each category. There are also recordings from our briefings, where supervisors explicitly instructed us to be more thorough with certain demographic groups. Who issues these directives? They come through our chain of command, but I've traced them back to TechSafe Solutions, the company that installed the enhanced security protocols at major airports, the same company Reynolds acquired last year. This aligned perfectly with Sarah Lawson's information. Trevor, do you understand what you're getting into by sharing this? Reynolds won't take this lightly. I know. But after seeing how you were treated and learning about similar incidents at other airports, I couldn't stay silent. This isn't security. It's systematic discrimination and corporate corruption. Trevor showed her additional documents revealing that Sky Regional had been using these security protocols to delay or prevent inspections of aircraft with known maintenance issues. They're buying time, Trevor explained. When an inspector is flagged in the system, maintenance crews receive alerts, giving them time to create the appearance of compliance. As they were reviewing the documents, Trevor's radio crackled. All units be advised. FAA Inspector Washington is to be escorted to the Sky Regional offices upon location. Director's orders. Trevor quickly turned down the volume. They're looking for you. You need to go. Jasmine gathered the evidence and prepared to leave. Thank you for doing the right thing. There's one more thing you should know, Trevor said gravely. The safety issues Sky Regional is hiding, they're not minor. We're talking about structural problems, faulty sensors, critical systems operating outside of safety parameters. They're gambling with people's lives to save money. This confirmed Jasmine's worst fears. She needed to get this information to Benjamin and the FBI immediately. As she left the storage area, she called her supervisor again. Benjamin, the situation is worse than we thought. I have evidence that Sky Regional is not only obstructing inspections, but actively concealing serious safety violations. Aircraft that should be grounded are in regular service. Where are you now? Benjamin asked, concern evident in his voice. Memphis International. I'm supposed to fly to Dallas tonight on Sky Regional 2245. But I've learned that particular aircraft has documented sensor issues that haven't been addressed. Do not board that flight, Benjamin instructed firmly. The FBI has been notified. Special Agent Monica Rivera will contact you within the hour. Stay in public areas where you can be seen. As she ended the call, Jasmine noticed two security officers scanning the concourse, clearly looking for someone. She moved casually toward the busier central terminal area, keeping her face partially obscured while remaining in plain sight of security cameras and other travelers. Her phone rang again, an unknown number. Cautiously, she answered. Inspector Washington, this is Special Agent Monica Rivera, FBI. I understand you have information regarding potential federal violations by Sky Regional Airlines and its CEO. Yes, but the situation is developing rapidly. They're actively searching for me in the terminal right now. Stay where you are. I have agents en route to your location. We'll extract you safely and secure your evidence. Jasmine found a seat at a crowded gate area and waited watching as more security personnel joined the search. Her phone buzzed with another text, this one from Sarah Lawson. Urgent, Reynolds just ordered emergency server wipe at TechSafe. Evidence disappearing. Hotel room compromised. The net was closing in from all sides. Reynolds was eliminating evidence while his security forces hunted for her. Jasmine knew she couldn't wait for the FBI to arrive. She needed to preserve what evidence remained and ensure it reached the proper authorities. With determination, she formulated a plan. This had gone beyond professional obligation. It was now about preventing a potential tragedy and exposing a system that discriminated against people like her while endangering countless passengers. The battle lines were drawn, and Jasmine Washington was ready for the fight. 30 minutes later, Jasmine sat in a secure conference room at the FBI's Memphis field office. The sterile space, with its government-issue furniture and fluorescent lighting, provided a stark contrast to the chaos of the past 24 hours. Across from her sat Special Agent Monica Rivera, a sharp-eyed woman in her mid-40s whose no-nonsense demeanor reminded Jasmine of her former Air Force commander. Your evidence is compelling, Inspector Washington. Agent Rivera said, reviewing the materials spread across the table. Corporate obstruction, discriminatory security practices, safety violations. This case touches on multiple federal statutes. And it goes all the way to the top, Jasmine added. Bradley Reynolds has created an integrated system to shield his airline from proper oversight while endangering passengers. Agent Rivera nodded grimly. We've been investigating Reynolds Holdings for financial irregularities, but this adds an entirely new dimension. The deliberate targeting of federal officials based on race takes this beyond corporate malfeasance into civil rights territory. Jasmine's secure phone provided by the FBI after they determined her personal device might be compromised chimed with an incoming call. It was Benjamin Chen. Jasmine, I've briefed the FAA administrator and the Department of Transportation. They're fully supporting our action on this. How secure are you? I'm with the FBI in Memphis. Agent Rivera is coordinating the investigation. Good. We need to move quickly. Reynolds is already attempting damage control. He's issued a statement about disgruntled employees spreading misinformation and has his legal team preparing countersuits for defamation. Agent Rivera took over the call. Mr. Chen, we have enough to secure warrants for Sky Regional's records and Reynolds' communications, but executing those warrants will alert him to our full investigation. Once that happens, evidence will start disappearing even faster than it already is. What do you suggest? Benjamin asked. Jasmine had been considering this problem. We need to catch them in the act. If we move too soon, they'll deny everything and claim the evidence was fabricated or taken out of context. Agreed, said Agent Rivera. We need incontrovertible proof of the discrimination, the safety violations, and Reynolds' direct involvement. I have an idea, Jasmine said, leaning forward. Reynolds doesn't know exactly what evidence I've gathered or who's provided it to me. He's scrambling to cover his tracks, but he can't be sure what trails to eliminate. She outlined her plan. She would continue her inspection tour as scheduled, deliberately placing herself in the same position where she'd been targeted at O'Hare. This time, however, she would be wired with recording equipment, and FBI agents would be positioned to document the entire process. Meanwhile, additional agents would execute simultaneous raids on TechSafe Solutions and Sky Regional's maintenance facilities once the discrimination was documented. It's risky, Agent Rivera cautioned. Reynolds has already shown he's willing to go to extreme lengths to stop you. Which is exactly why this will work, Jasmine replied. He's desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. If I suddenly disappear from the investigation, he'll know something's wrong. But if I continue as if I'm still gathering evidence, he'll try to stop me again, this time with federal agents watching. After further discussion, they formalized the plan. Jasmine would book a return flight through O'Hare, deliberately scheduling it to coincide with Trevor Daniels' shift. Agent Rivera would coordinate with the Chicago field office to position agents throughout the airport. Trevor had agreed to wear a recording device during the pre-shift security briefing to capture any discriminatory instructions. Benjamin arranged for several other FAA inspectors to be visibly recalled from field assignments, creating the impression that the agency was pulling back rather than escalating its investigation. This would give Reynolds a false sense of security while actually tightening the net around him. Jasmine spent the next hours preparing meticulously. She worked with FBI technicians to ensure all evidence was properly documented and secured in multiple locations. 3 complete copies of everything were created, one for the FBI, one for the FAA, and one that would remain with Jasmine's attorney. If anything happens to me, she instructed, this information goes immediately to Terrell Jackson at the National Investigative Reporter. As evening approached, Jasmine made a secure call to her parents' house where Zoe was staying. "How are you holding up, sweetheart?" she asked, when her daughter came on the line. "I'm okay, Mom. Grandma and Grandpa are spoiling me rotten. But I'm worried about you. What's going on?" Jasmine considered how much to share. Zoe was 17, old enough to understand the severity of the situation, but still young enough that Jasmine wanted to protect her from worry. "I'm investigating some serious safety violations, and the company involved isn't happy about it. I'm being careful, and I have help from the FBI." "The FBI, Mom? That sounds dangerous." "It's mostly paperwork and evidence gathering," Jasmine reassured her, downplaying the risks. "But I need you to stay with Grandma and Grandpa until it's resolved." After saying goodbye to Zoe, Jasmine received another update from Sarah Lawson, who had been placed under FBI protection after providing her testimony. "Reynolds is getting nervous," Sarah reported. "He's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. The official agenda is responding to regulatory overreach. But my sources say he's looking for approval to implement emergency protocols at all Sky Regional facilities." "What does that mean?" Agent Rivera asked. "It means they're going to destroy evidence on a massive scale," Sarah explained. "Server wipes document shredding the works, and they'll replace key personnel at security checkpoints with people loyal to Reynolds." This accelerated their timeline. Instead of waiting for Jasmine's next scheduled flight, they would need to move immediately. Agent Rivera coordinated with the FBI's Chicago office to position agents overnight. Jasmine would fly to O'Hare first thing in the morning, deliberately arriving at the security checkpoint where Trevor worked. As they finalized the details, Jasmine received a disturbing call from Terrell Jackson. "I've been doing some digging into Reynolds' background," the journalist said. "He's not just trying to avoid safety violations, he's actively covering up a pattern of incidents. 3 near misses in the past year involve Sky Regional aircraft with maintenance issues that match what you've found. The NTSB investigations were somehow diverted or minimized." "How is that possible?" Jasmine asked. "Reynolds has friends in high places, political connections, former colleagues now in regulatory positions. He's built a protection network that extends beyond his own companies." This information added urgency to their plan. If Reynolds had corrupted individuals within regulatory agencies, their window for action was even smaller than they'd thought. That night, in a secure hotel room arranged by the FBI, Jasmine reviewed all the evidence once more. She organized a detailed timeline of events connecting the discrimination against minority inspectors to specific safety violations Sky Regional had concealed. The pattern was clear and damning. Reynolds had weaponized security protocols to prevent inspections of aircraft with known safety issues, deliberately targeting inspectors based on race to avoid scrutiny. She prepared herself mentally and emotionally for what would come next. Throughout her career, Jasmine had faced discrimination, skepticism, and hostility, but she had always persevered through competence and determination. Tomorrow would test those qualities as never before. As she finally lay down to sleep, Jasmine thought of her father's words from years ago. "You'll have to work twice as hard to go half as far." She had accepted that reality long ago. But now she would use her experiences and the systematic discrimination she had faced to expose corruption that threatened countless lives. Tomorrow, Bradley Reynolds would discover that he had underestimated the wrong inspector. The early morning air at Memphis International Airport carried a peculiar stillness, as if the very atmosphere sensed the tension of what was about to unfold. Jasmine moved through the terminal with practiced composure, her carry-on rolling smoothly behind her, her briefcase held firmly in her left hand. Beneath her jacket, a slim recording device captured every sound, its feed transmitting directly to Agent Rivera's team. Alpha Team in position came the quiet confirmation through her nearly invisible earpiece. Beta Team has eyes on the checkpoint. Jasmine gave no indication she'd heard, maintaining her steady pace toward the security area. According to their intelligence, Bradley Reynolds had flown into O'Hare the previous evening for what was officially described as a routine operations review. The timing was too convenient to be coincidence. As she approached the TSA pre-check lane, she spotted Trevor Daniels at his station. Their eyes met briefly, no acknowledgement, as they'd agreed. Trevor had already transmitted recording of that morning's security briefing, during which Keith Barton had explicitly instructed the team to flag Jasmine for maximum security protocol and detain her in a private screening room. "Subject approaching checkpoint," Agent Rivera murmured in Jasmine's ear. Reynolds confirmed on site, currently in the operations office overlooking the main concourse. Jasmine joined the security line, presenting her ID and boarding pass with the same professional detachment she'd shown countless times before. The first TSA agent processed her credentials without incident, but as she approached the scanner, she noticed Keith Barton emerging from a side office, speaking urgently into his radio. Everything proceeded according to plan. As Jasmine collected her belongings from the scanner belt, Trevor approached with another security officer. "Ma'am, you've been randomly selected for additional screening," he announced, loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Please step aside." "Is there a problem?" Jasmine asked, maintaining the script they'd rehearsed. "Just routine, ma'am," Trevor replied, though his eyes conveyed a different message. Behind him, Keith Barton watched intently. Jasmine was escorted to a screening area where her carry-on was emptied, its contents spread across the table. The other officer, whose name tag identified him as Sullivan, began aggressively questioning her about her travel purpose. "I'm traveling for business," Jasmine replied calmly. "What kind of business requires these?" Sullivan asked, holding up her FAA documentation folder without opening it. "That's confidential government material," Jasmine stated. Keith Barton approached his face, a mask of professional concern. "Is there an issue here?" This passenger has been flagged in our system, Trevor explained, following the script. Category red. Barton's expression shifted subtly, satisfaction briefly replacing concern. I see. Ma'am, we'll need to conduct a more thorough inspection in our private screening room. May I ask why I've been flagged? Jasmine pressed. I'm a frequent traveler with pre-check clearance. Our system has identified potential security concerns, Barton replied smoothly. It's for everyone's safety. Through her earpiece, Jasmine heard Agent Rivera, "We've got it all. Reynolds just received a text and is heading your way. Stand by for Phase 2. As if on cue, Sullivan received a radio call. Sir Director Reynolds is requesting an update on the situation. Barton stiffened. Tell him we're following protocol. Subject is being moved to secondary screening. I'd like to see this protocol that's being applied, Jasmine said firmly. And I'd like to know why I'm being singled out when other passengers with similar profiles are proceeding without incident. Ma'am, arguing will only prolong the process, Barton warned, his patience visibly thinning. Please cooperate or we'll need to involve airport police. Jasmine noted 3 white male business travelers passing through security without additional screening, their profiles virtually identical to hers except for race and gender. Those gentlemen seem to have similar carry-ons. Are they being screened as well? Barton ignored the question. Officer Sullivan, please escort Miss Washington to room B for additional screening. Sullivan moved to take Jasmine's arm, but she stepped back. I'm not refusing screening. I'm questioning discriminatory application of supposed security protocols. The confrontation was drawing attention. Nearby passengers had slowed to watch some openly filming with their phones. Through her earpiece, Jasmine heard Agent Rivera FBI Alpha Team moving into position. Reynolds, approaching from your 3 o'clock. And then Bradley Reynolds appeared, his expensive suit and confident stride, marking him as someone accustomed to authority. He conferred briefly with Barton before approaching Jasmine directly. Is there a problem here? Reynolds asked, his voice carrying the practiced concern of an executive addressing a customer service issue. Mr. Reynolds, Jasmine acknowledged, letting him know she recognized him. I was just asking why I've been flagged for additional screening when other travelers with similar profiles are proceeding without incident. Reynolds feigned surprise at her recognition. You know who I am. Bradley Reynolds, CEO of Sky Regional Airlines and Reynolds Holdings Group, which recently acquired North Star Security Services and TechSafe Solutions. Jasmine replied evenly. Quite a coincidence to find you personally supervising a random security screening. Reynolds' composed facade flickered momentarily. As CEO, I take an active interest in our operations, especially security matters, including specifically targeting FAA inspectors for enhanced scrutiny, Jasmine pressed. The terminal seemed to go quiet, though it was merely Jasmine's focus narrowing to this crucial moment. Reynolds glanced at Barton, then back to Jasmine. I don't know what you're implying, but our security systems use advanced algorithms to identify potential risks based on objective criteria. Objective criteria like race, or perhaps official position, or maybe tendency to cite safety violations, Jasmine countered. Reynolds' expression hardened. Officer Sullivan, please escort this passenger to private screening immediately. She's becoming disruptive. Sullivan moved forward again, and Trevor stepped slightly back as planned. Jasmine noted additional security personnel approaching from behind, not part of their script. Reynolds was escalating beyond what they'd anticipated. Before that happens, Jasmine said, reaching into her jacket, you should know who you're dealing with. For the second time in 2 days, she produced her FAA credentials. Jasmine Washington, Federal Aviation Administration Senior Safety Inspector. And I have some questions about Sky Regional's maintenance practices, Mr. Reynolds. The effect was immediate. Sullivan froze mid-step. Barton's face drained of color. And Reynolds showed only momentary surprise before his expression settled into calculated determination. Inspector Washington. What a coincidence, he said smoothly. Had we known an FAA official was traveling through O'Hare, we would have extended professional courtesy. Like the professional courtesy extended yesterday when your security team attempted to prevent me from boarding my flight to Memphis. Or perhaps like the courtesy extended when my hotel room was searched, or when my rental car was tampered with. Reynolds maintained his composure. I have no idea what you're talking about, but if you've experienced difficulties, we'd be happy to assist. Perhaps we could discuss this privately. I don't think privacy is appropriate at this point, Mr. Reynolds. Jasmine stood her ground. Not when your company has systematically discriminated against minority federal inspectors to conceal safety violations that put passengers at risk. Reynolds' eyes narrowed dangerously. That's a serious accusation, Inspector, one that could be considered defamatory without evidence. I have the evidence, Mr. Reynolds, and so does the FBI. On cue, Agent Rivera approached, flanked by two other agents, Bradley Reynolds, Keith Barton, Officer Sullivan. I'm Special Agent Monica Rivera, FBI. We have warrants to search your person's offices and electronic devices in connection with an investigation into obstruction of federal officials and civil rights violations. Reynolds' mask of composure finally cracked. This is absurd. You have no grounds. We have extensive documentation, Mr. Reynolds. Agent Rivera continued professionally, including recordings of your security teams being instructed to target minority inspectors, evidence of maintenance violations being concealed, and witness testimony from multiple sources within your organizations. As she spoke, additional FBI agents appeared throughout the terminal, some moving to secure offices, others approaching other security personnel identified in Trevor's evidence. Reynolds turned to Jasmine, rage barely contained beneath his professional veneer. You have no idea who you're dealing with, Inspector. On the contrary, Jasmine replied calmly. I know exactly who I'm dealing with. A man who weaponized discrimination to endanger passengers for profit. As Reynolds was read his rights, Jasmine felt no triumph, only grim satisfaction that a serious threat to public safety was being neutralized. The system she had dedicated her career to upholding had been corrupted, but today it was beginning to right itself. Through her earpiece, she heard confirmation that simultaneous raids were underway at Sky Regional's headquarters, TechSafe's offices, and multiple maintenance facilities. The evidence they'd gather would ensure that what had happened to her wouldn't happen to other inspectors, and that the aircraft's safety issues would be properly addressed before tragedy struck. As Reynolds was escorted away, he turned back to Jasmine with cold fury. This isn't over, Washington. You're right, Mr. Reynolds, she agreed. It's just beginning. 6 months later, Jasmine Washington sat in a wood-paneled hearing room on Capitol Hill, adjusting the microphone before her as cameras flashed. The Senate Committee on Transportation Safety had convened its third and final day of hearings into what the media had dubbed the Sky Regional discrimination scandal. As the key witness, Jasmine had already provided hours of testimony detailing the systematic discrimination and safety violations she had uncovered. Inspector Washington said, Senator Eleanor Martinez, the committee chair, your courage in pursuing this investigation despite personal risk has been remarkable. Could you summarize for the committee the changes that have resulted from your actions? Jasmine looked out at the packed gallery. Among the faces she spotted Zoe, sitting proudly between her grandparents, Trevor Daniels in a new suit, Sarah Lawson looking much more relaxed than when they'd first met, and Benjamin Chen nodding encouragement from the back row. The most immediate result was the grounding of 27 Sky Regional aircraft, with maintenance issues that should have prevented them from flying, Jasmine began. The subsequent investigation revealed over 200 safety violations that had been deliberately concealed during previous inspections. She consulted her notes before continuing. Bradley Reynolds and 5 other executives have been indicted on multiple federal charges, including obstruction of federal officers, civil rights violations, and endangering public safety. Keith Barton and 12 security supervisors across 6 airports face similar charges for implementing the discriminatory security protocols. The facts were impressive, but Jasmine knew they didn't capture the full impact of what had occurred. Beyond the criminal cases, this investigation has forced a reckoning within the aviation industry. The FAA has implemented new protocols for inspector protection and anti-discrimination training. An independent commission is reviewing security practices at all major airports to ensure screening is based on legitimate safety concerns rather than discriminatory factors. Senator Martinez nodded. And Sky Regional Airlines itself, the company has undergone complete leadership restructuring under court supervision, Jasmine explained. A comprehensive safety audit was conducted across their entire fleet, resulting in significant improvements to maintenance practices. The discriminatory security software has been removed from all airports, and new oversight mechanisms have been established to prevent similar abuses. What Jasmine didn't mention was her own professional transformation. Following the investigation, she had been promoted to head a new FAA division focused specifically on integrity in aviation oversight, a role created in direct response to the systemic issues her case had exposed. Her team was developing innovative approaches to ensure inspections remained truly independent from the companies they regulated. After the hearing concluded, Jasmine met with Terrell Jackson, whose investigative reporting had helped bring the case to national attention. "The story's not over," Terrell said as they walked through the Capitol corridors. Reynolds' political allies are still trying to minimize the scandal, and some of his business practices have been adopted by other airlines. "Which is exactly why our work continues," Jasmine replied. "This case was never just about one airline or one CEO. It exposed vulnerabilities in the entire system." Later that evening, Jasmine reunited with Trevor Daniels at a small reception for those who had testified. The former security officer had transformed as well, becoming an advocate for security reform and serving as a consultant to the Department of Transportation's new anti-discrimination task force. "I never thought I'd be here," Trevor admitted, looking somewhat uncomfortable in his formal attire. "When I took that security job, I was just following orders." "But when it mattered, you made the right choice," Jasmine reminded him. "That's what counts." "Your example made it possible," he replied. "Seeing how you stood your ground that day at O'Hare, it changed my perspective on everything. This was perhaps the most meaningful outcome of the entire ordeal." Beyond the policy changes and criminal charges, individual people throughout the aviation industry had been inspired to examine their own roles in perpetuating or challenging discriminatory systems. The most touching moment came when Jasmine returned home to find Zoe waiting with a special surprise, her college acceptance letter from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, the same school where Jasmine had once dreamed of studying. Before financial constraints led her to Howard University instead. "I'm going to study aerospace safety systems," Zoe announced proudly. "Because of you, Mom." "Because of yourself," Jasmine corrected, embracing her daughter. "You've always had the determination. I just showed you one path it could take." As they celebrated that evening, Jasmine reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From the little girl assembling model airplanes to the professional who had taken on corporate corruption and won her path had never been easy. The words of her father echoed in her memory, "You'll have to work twice as hard to go half as far." Perhaps that had been true once. But as she looked at her daughter, the next generation preparing to enter the field, Jasmine hoped things would be different. Not because discrimination had been eliminated, but because more people were willing to stand against it. The following Monday, Jasmine returned to work at the FAA's headquarters in Washington, D.C. As she approached the security checkpoint, the officer, a young black woman, recognized her immediately. "Good morning, Inspector Washington," she said, checking Jasmine's credentials with professional courtesy. "Thank you for your service." Jasmine smiled, noting the difference from a year ago when her authority had been questioned at every turn. "Just doing my job," she replied. "Well, it matters," the officer said sincerely. "My brother's a pilot for United. What you did made the skies safer for everyone." As Jasmine continued to her office, she felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. Her battle against discrimination hadn't ended with the exposure of Sky Regional's practices. In many ways, it had just begun. But today, as she prepared to interview candidates for her new mentorship program for minorities in aviation careers, she knew that each step forward mattered. The system wasn't perfect. Discrimination hadn't disappeared overnight. But change was happening, one inspection, one policy, one brave individual at a time. And for Jasmine Washington, that made all the difference. Jasmine Washington's story reminds us that discrimination often operates as a tool of power, a weapon wielded to silence those who might expose deeper corruption. The true danger wasn't just in the airport security's racial bias, but in how this discrimination protected a system that endangered countless lives. When institutions use prejudice as a shield, they reveal the interconnection between discrimination and broader ethical failures. This case teaches us that fighting discrimination isn't just about personal dignity, though that matters profoundly, but about dismantling systems that use bias to conceal other forms of wrongdoing. Every act of resistance against racial profiling potentially reveals other injustices hiding behind it. For those facing discrimination, Jasmine's approach offers valuable guidance. Document everything, build alliances, follow proper channels when possible, but be prepared to take bold action when systems fail. Most importantly, recognize that your fight for fair treatment may uncover injustices affecting many others. The courage to stand against discrimination, even when it means personal risk, can create ripples of positive change far beyond what we initially imagine. What discrimination have you witnessed in professional settings, and how did you respond? Would you have risked your safety and career like Jasmine, or taken a different approach? Comment below with your experiences or thoughts. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more powerful narratives about courage in the face of injustice. Share this video with someone who needs encouragement to stand up against discrimination in their workplace or community. Thank you for joining us for this powerful story. Remember, sometimes the most impactful thing you can do is simply refuse to let discrimination continue unchallenged, even when doing so comes at a personal cost. Your stand today might protect countless others tomorrow.